The leather of the steering wheel was cold under my palms. I held the mug of coffee tighter. Steam rose in the chilly morning air at exactly 8:42 a.m. I pressed the brake lightly, then glanced at the GPS. 5 miles to the school auditorium. Emma shifted in the passenger seat, her backpack scraping against the vinyl. "Grandpa, are we going to sit with Mom?" she asked, voice hesitant. I shook my head slowly. The scent of rain-soaked asphalt lingered in the air. The windows fogged slightly, and I wiped a streak with my sleeve. I remembered 2013, when my colleague Mark called from the plant, insisting I check the blueprints for the new assembly line. I could still smell the solvent and hear the humming machines. That memory reminded me to stay observant today. The auditorium rose ahead, grand and imposing, polished oak floors reflecting fluorescent lights. A faint scent of fresh varnish and hot popcorn mingled. I parked 20 feet from the entrance and stepped onto the concrete, feeling its damp chill against my shoes. The crowd's murmur echoed off the high ceilings. Children shuffled, parents whispered. I noticed the golden plaques and banners announcing scholarship recipients. My internal calculation ran fast. The seating plan had been sent to me last week. Every family section had its allocations. Lisa had been too precise, maybe overconfident. She assumed I wouldn't notice. I scanned the usher, an older man with a navy blazer, clipboard in hand. My heart raced slightly, but I forced my posture upright. I could see Emma's anxious eyes. Her fingers twisted the straps of her backpack. I remembered 2017, the day my friend Karen handed me a stack of envelopes containing checks for the school's robotics program. I could smell the ink and paper, recall her teasing grin. That diligence was my template for noticing details, spotting irregularities. I approached the usher slowly, careful not to draw attention. "Good morning," I said calmly. "Where is our family seating?" The usher shuffled papers. "Sir, family seating is full. You'll have to sit elsewhere." I nodded, pretending to consider. Behind him, Lisa leaned on the wall, whispering to 2 staff members. I caught fragments of her words, calculating, labeling. I could hear the click of a projector starting in the main hall. The scent of polished wood mixed with lingering coffee aromas. I moved to a side aisle, noting gaps in the seating plan. My mind ran through the finances I had quietly handled this year. $15,000 for science awards, $12,000 for art competitions, $18,000 for music scholarships. I had done it without fuss. Lisa had assumed ignorance, control. I took a deep breath. My coffee felt lukewarm now. I watched the clock. 8:57 a.m. I reminded myself that patience was leverage. Every detail mattered. I remembered 2011, when my mentor, Alice, pointed out a missing bolt in a prototype. The smell of machine oil and her perfume was vivid. That attention to detail had saved the project. It would save me today. I whispered to Emma, "Stay calm. Watch closely." Her nod was barely perceptible. The murmuring crowd seemed louder now. The echo of footsteps on the hardwood floor rang sharply. My internal analysis confirmed. Gaps in allocated seating, banners listing contributors, sponsor names I had provided. Timing, placement, visibility, all aligned. I felt a surge of quiet satisfaction. My gaze locked on Lisa. Confidence, control, status, she wanted it all. My mind assessed. She underestimated both my observation skills and quiet preparation. Emma leaned slightly toward me, whispering, "Grandpa, I think they're missing something." I nodded subtly. The moment hung, and then a voice rang sharply from behind the staff desk. "Sir, your daughter just informed us. Mr. Thompson, your family section has been reassigned, and she personally approved it." I stepped out of the car onto the marble steps, the sun hitting the glass doors sharply at 9:03 a.m. The auditorium smelled faintly of fresh paint and hot chocolate from a nearby stand. A breeze carried the sound of children laughing and teachers directing traffic. I adjusted Emma's backpack strap and checked my watch. 42 minutes past 9. We entered the lobby. High ceilings reflected the morning light, and the polished floor echoed every step. I remembered 2012, the day my old manager, Tom, at the engineering firm, showed me the prototype machine. The sharp smell of oil and the metallic clang of moving parts were vivid. I had spent 3 weeks calibrating that machine to a tolerance of 0.05 inches. That memory reminded me to pay attention to details today. I walked toward the side hall where overflow seating was arranged. The walls were warm beige, faintly scented with lavender polish. Soft murmurs filled the air, and a heater hummed gently against the cold February morning. Emma clutched my hand, eyes wide. I analyzed the space. There were empty chairs in rows 14 to 18, but the front row had plaques labeled family sponsors. Lisa's name was absent. I could hear my own heartbeat. The program in my hand listed $7,500 for science awards, $5,200 for art, $4,800 for music scholarships. All contributions I had quietly managed. I guided Emma toward a window seat at row 15. The sunlight glinted off the polished brass nameplates. I noted the placement of staff, the proximity to the stage, and the visibility of the sponsor names. My internal assessment ran rapidly. Lisa had assumed ignorance. Her confidence was evident, but she had overlooked details she could not control. Emma whispered softly, "Grandpa, why are some names missing?" I didn't answer. I let her observe, her fingers tracing the wood grain of the armrest. I remembered 2014. A colleague named Denise had hidden discrepancies in a project blueprint. I had caught them through careful measurements and comparisons. The scent of ink and faint coffee still lingered in my memory. I analyzed the staff, the plaque order, the lighting patterns. The overhead lights cast a glare on some of the brass plates, revealing numbers and names. Timing was critical. I noted the clock, 9:12 a.m. The first award presentations were set to begin at 9:20 a.m. I whispered to Emma, "Watch carefully, notice everything." She nodded, still quiet. I opened the program fully and compared each line to the sponsorship spreadsheet I had prepared in January. I saw gaps in the allocation. Specific numbers jumped out: $3,000 for robotics, $2,500 for writing contests, $4,000 for music. Each one accounted for. Lisa's attempt at control was flawed. I reviewed the seating chart again. The front row was full in appearance, but I noted discrepancies between the printed chart and actual allocations. My mind ran calculations on visibility, recognition, and timing. I recalled 2011, the day my mentor, Harold, had taught me to spot missing circuit connections by touch and sight alone. That attention to detail had saved multiple projects. I now applied the same rigor to this ceremony. The hallway outside the side entrance echoed with footsteps. Staff whispered, glanced toward Lisa, who was talking quietly to an usher. My focus remained on patterns, numbers, and timing. Emma leaned against me, whispering, "Grandpa, something is off." I nodded, slightly, aware of every movement around us. The murmur of children and parents shifted as a bell rang somewhere in the main hall. I noticed a small printout attached to a side display board. It listed contributors for each award. My contributions were clearly marked, but the names under family seating were inconsistent. I ran mental tallies: $7,500, $5,200, $4,800, $3,000, $2,500, $4,000. Total $26,000. I realized Lisa's plan would soon unravel. I checked Emma's watch. 9:15 a.m. enough time to observe the first announcement. The lighting shifted, a projector started, casting a glow on the plaques. I mentally rehearsed the sequence of recognition, audience attention, and visibility. I could see staff moving signs, unaware of the discrepancies I had mapped. I whispered to Emma again, "Be ready, it is about to start." Her eyes widened, and she held my hand tighter. My analysis concluded. The pattern was predictable, the misrepresentation clear, the time window precise. I scanned the audience, noting reactions, expressions, and placement. My mind calculated impact, probability of discovery, and exposure. Every second mattered. And then my phone buzzed sharply. A message from the school coordinator appeared. "John Thompson, your contributions totaling $26,000 have been posted publicly on the awards screen. Immediate attention required." I guided Emma down the marble corridor toward the cafeteria area, the floor cool under our shoes at 9:18 a.m. The smell of fresh paint and warm maple syrup from the breakfast line mixed sharply. Children and parents whispered, shuffled, the clatter of trays echoing off the walls. I remembered 2010, when my friend Robert had shown me a miscalculated blueprint at the engineering office. The metallic smell of solder and the sharp click of the caliper still lingered in my memory. I spent hours tracing every line to correct the error. That diligence stayed with me. We stepped into a sunlit atrium. The sound of a water fountain echoed faintly. Warm air brushed against my face. I scanned the tables. All assigned, yet gaps between chairs caught my eye. Emma squeezed my hand. I analyzed spacing, visibility, and audience focus. My mind calculated. Timing for award calls, presentation order, staff positioning. The clock read 9:22 a.m. I counted sponsors listed on plaques. $5,200, $4,800, $7,500. I remembered 2015, when my colleague Susan had misplaced components in a prototype, the smell of machine oil and the cold air of the lab vivid. Attention to detail had prevented a $12,000 loss. I adjusted Emma's coat, feeling the warmth against my fingers, and moved toward a side counter to observe a better angle. I overheard teachers talking about seating logistics. Their voices were soft but precise, discussing row numbers and names. My internal analysis ran. Lisa assumed the front row was secure. She underestimated the gaps and visibility. I whispered, "Emma, observe everyone. Everything matters." She nodded quietly. I checked my watch again. 9:26 a.m. The presentation bell sounded, echoing in the atrium. I saw students filing on stage. The polished floor reflected the overhead lights. I calculated angles for visibility from the side counter. My mind traced the money allocations for awards again. $7,500 for science, $5,200 for art, $4,800 for music. Each amount fully accounted for. I watched Lisa, her posture rigid, whispering to staff. Confidence, arrogance, control. She expected me to be oblivious. I recalled 2009, when my mentor Greg had taught me to spot missing components by subtle shifts in light and shadow. The faint smell of ink from papers in his office remained in memory. I applied the same observation rigor here. I noticed a clipboard slightly tilted, papers misaligned, revealing a discrepancy in row assignments. Timing mattered. I nudged Emma closer to the railing, her eyes wide. I whispered, "Watch the order." I could see the principal stepping to the podium at 9:32 a.m., microphone feedback crackling faintly. I analyzed audience reactions. Parents shifted. Students looked nervous. Staff glanced at the plaques. My heart rate steadied. Patterns were predictable. The visibility of my name and contributions would soon emerge. I adjusted the program in my hand. $26,000 total contributions listed. My mind calculated how this would catch attention. Emma leaned forward, whispering, "Grandpa, that row is empty." I nodded, noting placement for maximum effect. The air smelled faintly of coffee and baked goods. I sensed the anticipation of the crowd. I recalled 2016, when my friend Alex had caught a misreported invoice of $3,400 by comparing numbers on two spreadsheets. That sharp attention had saved our budget. I scanned the cafeteria once more, noting staff movements, audience focus, light angles. Every detail mattered. My pulse quickened slightly. I leaned on the railing. I observed Lisa frown, noticing subtle shifts. Timing was critical. I adjusted Emma's scarf, feeling the soft wool. The first student presentation was underway at 9:36 a.m. I whispered a mental check of the sponsor plaques. $5,200, $4,800, $7,500. Fully documented. Every allocation precise. The moment for reveal approached. I made a small decision, shifting my weight slightly, placing the program so Emma could see the correct sponsorship order. I calculated immediate effect on visibility, maximum audience awareness. I could hear the murmur of parents noticing discrepancies. My internal analysis concluded Lisa had not accounted for side angle visibility. I pressed a small button on my phone to record a time-lapse of the plaques. The camera angle perfect. The first award was called at 9:38 a.m. I leaned closer to Emma. She breathed quietly. I held my hand over hers on the railing. Staff glanced up. Students stepped forward. The sound of the microphone amplified the audience murmurs. I realized the action I had taken would not be reversible, but timing was exact. The plaques now clearly displayed my contributions. And then Emma whispered sharply, "Grandpa, the display just updated. It shows all $26,000 in awards with your name as sponsor." I followed the line of parents and students down the wide hallway. At 9:45 a.m., the linoleum cooled beneath my shoes. The scent of fresh popcorn and citrus cleaner mingled, sharp in the air. I remembered 2014, when my colleague Denise had shown me a misaligned circuit board in the lab. The smell of solder and machine oil lingered vividly. I had spent 4 hours adjusting tolerances to 0.02 inches, triple-checking every connection. That memory reminded me to focus on small details now. We entered the gymnasium, transformed for the awards ceremony. The smell of polished hardwood floors and faint chalk dust filled my nose. Fluorescent lights buzzed softly, illuminating gold plaques and banners along the walls. Parents whispered, chairs scraped, and the echo of shoes bounced across the room. Emma clutched my arm, eyes wide. I scanned the stage and seating arrangement. The front row had nameplates. My contributions were absent. I noted gaps in alignment and the position of staff guiding students. My internal analysis ran through numbers: $7,500 for science awards, $5,200 for art, $4,800 for music, $3,000 for robotics. Total $20,500 accounted. Lisa had assumed control, unaware I had full records. I whispered, "Emma, stay close. Observe everything." She nodded, hands tight around my coat sleeve. I recalled 2011, when my mentor Harold had taught me to detect discrepancies in blueprints using light and shadow. The faint scent of ink and coffee was vivid. I applied the same methodical observation here. I noticed a small stack of index cards near the awards table. Each had names and amounts, some partially obscured. I bent slightly to read the numbers, confirming my calculations. The microphone feedback hummed. Principal Adams stepped forward at 9:52 a.m. I analyzed visibility, audience focus, timing. Patterns predicted, gaps exploited, impact measured. Emma leaned in, whispering, "Grandpa, look, the sponsor names are wrong." I scanned Lisa. Confidence waned slightly. She fidgeted with her clipboard. I noted lighting angles highlighting the plaques. I recalled 2013, when my colleague Mark had discovered a misreported budget line of $6,400. Correcting it prevented a significant financial error. I checked the clock. 9:55 a.m. Students were preparing on stage. Audience murmured. Chairs shifted. Staff adjusted banners. The moment for recognition approached. I slid the program to the side, revealing the sponsorship spreadsheet. Emma watched closely. I counted each sponsor allocation again. $5,200, $4,800, $7,500, $3,000. Exact, verified. I noticed Lisa whispering into her phone. Timing critical. I held the program up slightly, just enough for Emma to see. My internal calculation concluded her plan had failed. Staff glanced at the program and then at the plaques. Audience attention shifted subtly. I noted the reflection of overhead lights on polished gold nameplates. My pulse steadied. I leaned closer to Emma, whispering, "Now watch." The first award was announced at 9:57 a.m. I shifted position slightly to see staff reactions. The program and plaques now aligned in visibility from our side. Emma leaned forward. She gasped quietly. The digital display on the wall updated automatically. I noted the number, $26,000 total contributions, fully documented under my name. Lisa's frown deepened. I analyzed her posture, calculating the next moments. The microphone amplified murmurs of recognition from parents. Audience eyes flicked between plaques and program. I took a breath. Timing, alignment, visibility, documentation all converged. The side doors opened slightly, letting a breeze and faint citrus smell drift in. The echo of steps and hushed whispers carried. I recalled 2012, when my friend Robert had caught an accounting error of $4,500 in a budget report, using precise observation and cross-checking. My attention to detail was honed. I adjusted Emma's coat, feeling the wool, soft and warm against her small shoulders. I glanced at the side stage. Staff, we're arranging awards for the next presentation. My pulse measured, calculations complete. I leaned on the railing, ready to see the effects unfold. Every parent, every staff member, and each student on stage contributed to the visibility of the plaque updates. The digital screen now clearly displayed my contributions in full, audience eyes shifting in recognition. I whispered to Emma, "It is happening." She looked astonished. I assessed Lisa's reactions, noticing subtle tension and hesitancy. I tapped the program lightly to ensure clarity of view. My mind calculated maximum impact, timing for Emma to be acknowledged publicly. And then the projector flickered, displaying a message across the large gym screen. John Thompson, $26,000 sponsorship confirmed for all awards, discrepancies corrected. I guided Emma out of the gymnasium and into the school library at 10:02 a.m., the polished oak floors cool under our shoes. The scent of old books mixed with the faint aroma of pine cleaner. Sunlight filtered through tall windows, reflecting off brass nameplates lining the shelves. I remembered 2016, when my colleague Alex had shown me an incorrectly labeled circuit board during a prototype test. The sharp smell of solder and the rhythmic hum of machines lingered in memory. I had spent 6 hours correcting tolerances to within 0.03 inches. That meticulous attention reminded me to stay vigilant. I laid the program flat on a long reading table. The digital plaques had updated, displaying $26,000 under my name, but Lisa remained confident, unaware that staff were noticing. Emma peeked around a shelf, whispering, "Grandpa, look at her expression." I scanned the aisles, noting each staff member's gaze. The warm air carried whispers from the front hall. My internal calculation ran: audience recognition, visibility of sponsorship amounts, timing of applause. Every detail mattered. I recalled 2012, when my mentor Harold had caught a misreported budget line of $4,500 during a robotics grant review. The smell of printer ink and the cold office air was vivid. Attention to detail prevented a $4,500 error then, and it would prevent embarrassment now. I adjusted Emma's coat, feeling the softness against my fingers, and moved to a side table near a window to observe the reactions. Staff were speaking quietly, numbers being double-checked. I analyzed their positions. Lisa whispered into a phone, her tone clipped. Her frown deepened. I counted allocations on the plaques: $7,500 for science, $5,200 for art, $4,800 for music, $3,000 for robotics. Total $26,500, including a recently added essay award. My mind ran scenarios for impact, noting audience attention, timing, and lighting angles. The library echoed slightly with quiet footsteps. I leaned closer to Emma. She pointed subtly at a sheet of paper lying near the librarian's desk. I glanced down. Printed on the paper were names, amounts, and dates: $5,200, $4,800, $7,500, $3,000. Each line confirmed my contributions. My mind analyzed. Lisa had assumed control, but I had ensured total transparency. I noted the clock, 10:08 a.m. The next award was scheduled at 10:10 a.m. I whispered to Emma, "Watch carefully. This is important." She nodded, eyes wide. I recalled 2013, when my friend Robert had caught a $6,400 accounting error at the engineering firm using cross-check spreadsheets. The faint smell of ink and coffee lingered. That precision saved both time and resources. I applied the same meticulous approach here. The fluorescent lights reflected off polished wood and brass plaques. Staff checked the program against displayed numbers. My mind calculated outcomes: audience perception, Lisa's reaction, and Emma's recognition. I leaned against the edge of the table. Emma's small hand held mine, her fingers tense. I scanned Lisa again, noting her subtle gestures and attempts to mask anxiety. I could see her confidence wavering. I moved the program slightly, exposing my contributions clearly to the line of staff and audience members passing nearby. I heard whispered comments: $26,000, $26,500, recognition. My pulse measured, calculations precise. Emma leaned forward slightly. I realized timing, visibility, and alignment all converged for maximum effect. I mentally rehearsed the next award announcements. Staff shifted, unaware of the implications unfolding. I held my hand over Emma's, guiding her to the proper vantage. My internal analysis concluded Lisa's plan had failed, but she had not yet realized it. I counted seconds on the clock. 10:09 a.m. Footsteps approached. A librarian spoke quietly into a headset. All sponsorship names confirmed. Front display updated to show John Thompson's contributions. Emma gasped softly. I noted Lisa's reaction. Her posture stiffened. Staff glanced at her, confusion growing. The digital display reflected $26,500 contributions, fully attributed to me. I observed audience members murmuring softly, glancing at the plaques. My mind ran through scenarios. Misrepresentation corrected, audience informed, Lisa's confidence undermined. I adjusted Emma's scarf, feeling the warmth and softness. I noted lighting, visibility, and reflections. I could hear subtle pencil marks on a notepad. The clock ticked 10:11 a.m. I whispered, "Everything is aligned." Emma's eyes sparkled with realization. And then a staff member's tablet buzzed, showing an email notification. All family seating assignments updated to reflect John Thompson sponsorship. $26,500 contributions verified, effective immediately. I led Emma into the school auditorium office at 10:18 a.m., the polished linoleum cold under our shoes. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with wax polish, sharp and slightly sweet. The overhead fluorescent lights flickered softly, casting a pale glow on the walls lined with framed certificates. I remembered 2011, when my friend Laura had shown me a misaligned schematic at the engineering lab. The metallic scent of solder and machine oil lingered vividly. I spent 5 hours recalibrating components to within 0.02 inches, triple-checking tolerances. That precision reminded me to stay methodical now. I crouched behind a low partition near the display cases, observing staff and students. Chairs creaked, papers rustled, and faint whispers drifted across the room. Emma gripped my hand, her eyes wide. I scanned Lisa pacing near the awards table. Her frown deepened with every movement. My internal analysis ran quickly. Seating discrepancies, visibility of sponsor plaques, audience attention, timing. I noted every detail. The clock read 10:21 a.m. I noticed a small ledger on the counter with amounts: $7,500, $5,200, $4,800, $3,000. Total $26,500. Lisa believed she had controlled the situation. She did not. I positioned the camera on my phone discreetly to capture the front row and plaques. Staff glanced at her as she whispered urgently, unaware they were observed. The hum of the projector filled the office. Students shuffled in line. I adjusted Emma's scarf, feeling the soft wool. My pulse steadied. I recalled 2010, when my colleague Robert had uncovered a $6,400 accounting discrepancy in the robotics budget using a subtle cross-check method. That attention to detail prevented major errors. I applied the same rigor here. Lisa began speaking rapidly into her phone. I listened, unnoticed behind the partition. "Yes, we have to ensure he does not see the seating plan," she said. "Make sure the plaques do not list his contributions yet." I handled $5,200 for art and $7,500 for science. They must appear blank on the display. The $3,000 robotics award too. He should remain unaware until the last moment. I observed her hands fidget with the clipboard, the tension evident. Her tone sharpened. I confirmed the extra $4,800 for music. Do not let him notice. He cannot know the total yet. I adjusted the camera slightly to catch her expressions. Everything is under control. Staff think I approved it. $26,500 in total contributions. He should not see this coming. My mind calculated timing, visibility, and maximum effect. Her proxy confession was complete. She had revealed strategy, amounts, and total confidence. I noted audience reactions through the gaps. Parents whispered, some shifting in chairs. Students lined up nervously, unaware. The lighting reflected off the plaques perfectly. I measured angles for projection. The clock read 10:25 a.m. Emma whispered, "Grandpa, I see it." I nodded. The decision point was clear. I adjusted the program in my hand. My pulse accelerated slightly. I pressed the record button on the camera, capturing both plaques and Lisa's expression. I slowly stepped forward, positioning myself where visibility was clear. Every staff member in the office was now in view. I counted the seconds. 10:27 a.m. The awards ceremony announcer's voice echoed faintly in the gym. I whispered to Emma, "Watch closely." She leaned forward, eyes bright with anticipation. My internal assessment concluded Lisa had underestimated exposure, timing, and attention to detail. The plaques and digital display now perfectly aligned with my camera view. I could see her mouth open slightly, her frown deepening. My mind ran through contingencies, total visibility, audience focus, maximum acknowledgement. I adjusted Emma's hand on mine, steadying her. I breathed evenly. The projector hum shifted slightly as lights dimmed. I could see subtle shadows moving across Lisa's clipboard. Each flicker of attention mattered. I calculated the moment for maximum impact. I straightened, raised my hand over the program, and pressed the button to project my contributions across the large digital display. Every dollar, $7,500, $5,200, $4,800, and $3,000, now visible in sequence. Audience reactions shifted immediately. Lisa froze mid-step. Staff glanced quickly, whispering. I whispered softly to Emma, "It is done." And then I pressed the confirm button, sending the updated contributions live to every display in the auditorium. Irreversible. I exited the auditorium office at 10:33 a.m., the tiled hallway echoing beneath my shoes. The air was cooler here, tinged with the faint scent of bleach and paper from bulletin boards lining the walls. Fluorescent lights flickered gently, casting elongated shadows across posters announcing school achievements. I remembered 2009, when my mentor Greg had guided me through a complex mechanical inspection, the smell of machine oil and solder sharp in the workshop. He had traced a misaligned bearing that threatened to halt the assembly line. That memory reinforced the importance of noticing every detail today. I walked into the music room adjacent to the cafeteria. The warmth of sunlight through the tall windows contrasted with the chill of the hardwood floor. Instruments glinted in the light, brass, polished wood, strings catching reflections. Students rehearsed quietly, tapping feet in rhythm. I surveyed the seating chart again, noting discrepancies. Rows labeled for family sponsors had empty spaces, while front row plaques listed other names. My mind calculated timing of announcements, visibility of plaques, and the audience's attention span. I noticed Lisa standing near the doorway, her posture tense. She whispered rapidly into a phone, gesturing toward the plaques. I analyzed her movements, internalizing patterns of behavior. My pulse quickened slightly. Emma squeezed my hand, whispering, "Grandpa, she looks nervous." I nodded subtly, scanning the room for other staff reactions. The hum of a fan mixed with faint piano music from the practice room. I remembered 2013, when my colleague Mark had discovered a misreported budget line of $5,200 during a robotics grant review. The smell of ink and paper lingered. That experience taught me to anticipate hidden errors. I whispered to Emma, "Observe carefully." She leaned forward, eyes wide. I noted the lighting, the shadows cast on the plaques. Timing was critical. Every movement mattered. I observed staff adjusting nameplates. Small shifts in posture, murmured comments, subtle glances. I analyzed the sequence of award announcements. My mind ran through financial contributions: $7,500 for science, $5,200 for art, $4,800 for music, $3,000 for robotics. Total $26,500. Lisa believed she controlled the perception. She did not. I scanned the crowd. Parents shifted, children fidgeted, and whispers floated. I focused on the interplay of visibility, recognition, and timing. The projector flickered slightly, illuminating the plaques. I positioned Emma so she could see clearly. I noticed Lisa glance at the digital display, her eyes narrowing. She whispered urgently, "Make sure the $26,500 total does not appear until the final announcement." My calculations confirmed all elements aligned for maximum impact. I recalled 2012, when my friend Robert had caught a $6,400 discrepancy in an engineering budget, preventing costly errors. Attention to detail saved the project then and would now. I adjusted Emma's coat, feeling the softness and warmth. Staff checked the plaques again. Audience attention shifted subtly toward the front. I counted seconds, 10:37 a.m. The final award was due. I noted reflections on brass plaques, angles, and line of sight. My mind evaluated timing, exposure, acknowledgement, psychological effect. I whispered, "Now, Emma." She leaned closer. I pressed the button on the control panel, activating the digital display to show my total sponsorship contributions across every award. The lighting reflected perfectly on polished wood. The audience gasped softly. Staff murmured. Lisa's mouth opened slightly in shock. I held Emma's hand firmly, pulse steady, eyes scanning reactions. I analyzed every microexpression, every whispered comment. Timing and visibility achieved. The plaques and digital displays now displayed all contributions. $7,500, $5,200, $4,800, $3,000. Audience murmurs rose. Students looked surprised. Staff glanced at Lisa, then at me. I assessed the shift in authority, control, and perception. My calculations concluded Lisa underestimated both audience perception and visibility of accurate sponsorship data. Every parent, student, and teacher now could see reality. I inhaled slowly. Emma's eyes shone. I moved slightly to the side for a better view. Lisa stepped back, confused, visibly processing the full display. Staff whispered, pointing. Audience shifted gaze. My mind analyzed the impact. Her overconfidence had failed, control lost, recognition restored. I stepped toward the center aisle, calm and deliberate. And then Emma whispered softly, "Grandpa, everyone is looking at you." Even the principal just stopped and stared. I stepped into the small office behind the gym at 10:50 a.m., the carpet thick and slightly musty under my shoes. The smell of printer toner mixed with faint coffee from a nearby counter. Sunlight filtered through blinds, creating stripes across the wooden desks. I remembered 2011, when my colleague Denise had left a misprinted parts list on the table during a project review. The faint metallic smell of solder and ink lingered vividly in memory. I had corrected the error, saving $4,200 in material costs. That focus on details reminded me to stay alert now. I placed the program and digital camera on the nearest desk, scanning the room. Staff shifted quietly, chairs scraped softly, footsteps echoed. Emma clutched my arm, eyes wide. I noticed Lisa pacing near the doorway, clipboard in hand. She started speaking, clearly upset. "This is unacceptable," she said sharply. "He cannot have $26,500 showing. Everyone must see the front row first." I noted her pacing. "Check the plaques again," she continued. $7,500 for science, $5,200 for art, $4,800 for music. He must not know yet. I watched unseen. "Ensure staff follow instructions precisely," she said. $3,000 robotics award, confirm visibility. Total contributions $26,500 must remain hidden until announced. I adjusted the camera, capturing her expressions. "Do not let him approach," she added. "Make sure every parent is guided properly." I analyzed her urgency, tone, and microexpressions. The clock read 10:53 a.m. Staff whispered as students prepared. I noted lighting angles, plaque visibility, and reflection. My mind calculated impact, audience perception, and timing. I recalled 2013, when my friend Robert had caught a $6,400 miscalculation in a budget review. Attention to detail prevented costly errors then. I applied the same precision here. I moved closer to Emma, whispering, "Observe everything." She nodded subtly. The projector hummed softly. The display reflected the plaques clearly. Parents murmured. Students lined up nervously. I observed Lisa, her frown deepening. Staff glanced at her, uncertainty creeping in. Her overconfidence was eroding. I counted seconds. The clock showed 10:56 a.m. The final award was moments away. I assessed angles, reflections, and visibility. Every movement mattered. I pressed the program slightly, aligning it with the plaques. Audience attention shifted subtly toward the front. The plaques and digital display now perfectly matched my camera view. I noted Emma's eyes, shining with realization. I assessed Lisa's reaction, posture stiff, mouth slightly open. I realized her attempt to control perception had failed. Staff whispered. Audience murmurs grew. I analyzed the total contributions displayed. $7,500, $5,200, $4,800, $3,000, $6,000 for a new essay award. Total now $26,500, fully visible. I calculated maximum impact. Timing, exposure, recognition all converged. I adjusted Emma's hand on mine. The projector highlighted every number. Lisa's face paled, disbelief evident. Staff glanced quickly. Audience eyes shifted, noticing the full sponsorship. I scanned reflections, light angles, and audience engagement. Every detail confirmed my analysis. Emma leaned closer. I inhaled slowly. Every calculation and observation led to a single decision. I reached forward to the program and tapped the confirm button, sending the display updates live across the gym screens. Every amount, $7,500, $5,200, $4,800, $3,000, $6,000, now visible. Audience reactions shifted immediately. Staff whispered. Parents leaned forward. Lisa froze, realizing the control was gone. Students glanced around, noticing the plaque details. I held Emma's hand firmly. My mind ran through the sequence. Audience, visibility, timing, impact. I stood straighter. Every movement now irreversible. The projector cast light across polished wood. The hum of fans and soft footsteps filled the space. I noted shadows, reflections, and subtle glances. I took a deep breath. The room's energy shifted, authority and recognition restored. I pressed the final button on the tablet, ensuring every display synced perfectly. The digital plaques and overhead screens aligned, reflecting the full $26,500 in contributions. Audience murmurs intensified. Staff whispered rapidly. Lisa's expression was a mixture of shock and disbelief. And then I stepped forward, signing the final acknowledgement forms for the awards, the pen heavy in my hand, committing irreversibly to the full disclosure of every sponsorship detail. I walked into the school courtyard at 11:12 a.m., the crisp morning air brushing my cheeks. The smell of wet grass mingled with warm asphalt. Children laughed nearby, skipping between benches, their shoes squeaking against the concrete. I remembered 2015, when my colleague Alex had left a misaligned blueprint in the engineering office. The metallic smell of solder and the faint scent of printer ink lingered. I had spent 3 hours correcting measurements to within 0.01 inches. That memory reminded me to remain precise and observant now. I moved toward the outdoor terrace, sun reflecting off the glass railing, creating tiny prisms across the polished stone floor. A gentle breeze carried the distant murmur of applause from the auditorium. I assessed visibility and spacing from this new vantage point. The clock read 11:15 a.m. Emma clutched my hand, eyes wide. I observed Lisa approaching from the gym doors, frowning, adjusting her clipboard. Staff walked past, whispering, glancing at the plaques and digital displays. I mentally reviewed sponsorship totals. $7,500 for science, $5,200 for art, $4,800 for music, $3,000 for robotics. Total $26,500, confirmed and visible. I analyzed audience attention, timing of the next award call, and the shifting light patterns. The sunlight glinted off the brass nameplates. I recalled 2010, when my mentor Greg had caught a miscalculated gear alignment, the smell of machine oil strong, saving $4,000 in repair costs. That careful observation influenced every movement now. I whispered to Emma, notice every reaction. She leaned slightly, watching intently. Lisa stepped onto the terrace path, phone in hand. She muttered, ensure the plaques are positioned correctly. Parents must see the front row first. $7,500, $5,200, $4,800. $3,000. He must not realize until the final announcement. Confirmed total contributions, $26,500 remain hidden. Her tone revealed tension and urgency. I scanned reflections, angles, light, and shadow. Staff rearranged plaques slightly, unaware. I calculated visibility and audience focus from this terrace. Emma's hand tightened in mine. I measured timing for the next student award. The first announcement began at 11:18 a.m. I noted murmurs, glances, and shifting attention. Parents leaned forward, students fidgeted. I recalled 2012, when my colleague Robert had corrected a $5,600 discrepancy on a project spreadsheet by double-checking each line. That diligence saved resources and maintained trust. I observed every micro-expression. The digital plaques reflected fully in the sunlight. I adjusted Emma's scarf. Timing, alignment, and recognition were converging perfectly. Lisa froze momentarily, mouth slightly open. Staff whispered. Audience reaction shifted. I analyzed every detail. I stepped closer to the railing. Emma leaned forward. I could see her all. My mind assessed outcomes, perception, recognition, and impact. I held the tablet steady. My pulse measured. The digital display of $26,500 contributions reflected across the courtyard. Parents whispered. Students glanced at the plaques. Lisa looked around, realizing her plan had failed. My internal calculations confirmed authority and recognition restored. I took a slow breath. Sunlight glinted off every plaque, the numbers clear. I mentally counted every sponsorship allocation again. $7,500, $5,200, $4,800, $3,000. Emma's eyes shone. I surveyed the audience, staff, and students. Everything aligned. Timing, light, and visibility perfect. I observed Lisa's posture. Tension, confusion, disbelief. Staff glanced quickly between her and the plaques. Audience eyes shifted, noting full contributions. I felt a deep sense of control, clarity, and precision. And then I realized that from this terrace vantage point, I could see the auditorium exit doors where another parent group had gathered, and every display would now show the full $26,500 contributions to everyone entering, changing the perception of the entire ceremony in a way Lisa could no longer influence. I stepped onto the school rooftop at 11:35 a.m., the sunlight warm against my face and the breeze carrying faint scents of freshly cut grass from below. The distant hum of traffic mixed with children's laughter echoing from the playground. I remembered 2010, when my colleague Robert had shown me a misaligned schematic for the assembly line. The metallic smell of solder and the subtle aroma of printer ink lingered vividly. I had spent 5 hours adjusting every component to within 0.01 inches. That meticulous attention to detail stayed with me. I leaned against the railing, scanning the courtyard below. The digital plaques reflected in the morning sunlight, showing my total contributions: $7,500 for science, $5,200 for art, $4,800 for music, $3,000 for robotics, and $6,000 for the essay awards. Total $26,500. Audience members whispered as they moved toward the exit doors. I observed Lisa pacing near the gym entrance, clipboard in hand, frowning. Staff adjusted chairs and plaques, unaware of the visibility from the rooftop. Emma stood beside me, pointing toward parents gathering in groups. I analyzed angles, light, reflections, and audience attention. Timing and recognition were complete. My mind calculated potential reactions. Parents noticed plaques, murmuring about total contributions. Staff glanced between Lisa and the displays. I recalled 2013, when my mentor Harold had caught a misreported $4,800 item in a budget review by noticing subtle inconsistencies in the spreadsheets. That focus saved resources. I applied the same scrutiny here. I whispered to Emma, "Observe the sequence," nodded subtly. I calculated remaining seconds before the final student awards. Staff moved subtly, ensuring plaques were visible. Audience murmured, noticing all contributions. I observed reflections on plaques, angles, and lines of sight. I reviewed all totals again: $7,500, $5,200, $4,800, $3,000, $6,000. Complete. Alignment perfect. Recognition achieved. Emma leaned forward. Parents whispered. Students glanced around, noticing the total sponsorships. I scanned the scene. Every detail confirmed control, clarity, and correctness. The sun reflected off polished brass and glass. I felt the weight of completion. My mind processed the sequence of events. Every moment aligned perfectly. I stepped back from the railing. I whispered softly, "Well done, Emma." She smiled. I reviewed the totals once more: $26,500 across 5 awards. Each dollar accounted for. I realized that fairness, patience, and careful observation ensured acknowledgement without confrontation. Recognition did not require conflict. True value is in consistent, deliberate actions, not in fleeting authority or control. Integrity guides perception, effort ensures justice, and attention to detail maintains credibility.